cultural heritage. And also this notification was also published in the CCTV News and also the People's Daily. So today, by taking this opportunity, I would like to give you more introduction about this document. General Secretary Xi has attached great importance to the protection and heritage work of the historic and the cultural heritage. So during his inspections in different cities, he would like to emphasize the importance of the protection and the inheritance work. For example, the protection of the Zhengding County of Hebei Province and also Gulangyu, and also several historic sites in different places. General Secretary Xi has also proposed a number of suggestions and methods. He also proposed a lot of sustainable measures since the 18th CPC Party Congress. General Secretary also emphasized the importance for us to improve the cultural confidence, and also he gave us a lot of instruction on the work on the protection and the inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage. He said a few words to talk about the philosophy of the protection and the inheritance work. On one hand, he said the historic and the cultural heritage cannot be replaceable. We have to put protection and preservation as the top priority. Also, during his visit in Beijing, he also emphasized the importance to strike a balance of the renovation and the development of the urban and the rural areas. During his visit to Shanghai, he said, when we are treating the historic and the cultural heritage, it's like the way we are treating the elderly. We have to preserve the memory and also the value of those cultural relics. And during his visit to Fuzhou, he said we have to treasure all of these ancient cultural heritage and the historic sites. And in the past few years, he also pointed out a lot of suggestions on restoring the historic and the cultural heritage. He emphasized that we should do minor renovation for the protection and inheritance of these cultural sites. And recently, General Secretary visited Hebei and also Tibet. Once again, he emphasized the importance of the inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage. From his words, we could tell he deeply attached with the 5,000 years of history of Chinese civilization, and also he pointed out direction for us to further protect and inherit the historic and the cultural heritage. So based on all of those foundations, our department has made a lot of progress in preserving and protecting the historic and the cultural heritage. So first of all, I would like to share with you some figures. As of now, we have 137 historic cities. This is at the national level. For provincial level, history and cultural heritage, we have over 190. We also work with the Cultural Preservation Bureau. We also announced that we have 320 historic towns. And also we have over 4,000 villages that has been listed as the historic and the cultural heritage. In particular, in 2015, we also attached great importance to the protection and inheritance of ancient villages and alleys. So right now we have 970 communities and streets that has belonged to the historic and the cultural heritage. As compared to 2015, we have doubled our size of the number of historic and cultural streets and the communities. We have made a lot of progress in the protection and the inheritance work. By taking this opportunity, I would like to express my gratitude for your coverage. When we are making progress, we are crystal clear that for some of the historic and the cultural heritage has not yet been included into our catalog. Still, we are seeing the destruction and demolition of some of the historic and cultural heritage. We still have a long journey ahead of us. In recent years, in order to do a better work in the protection and the inheritance, we organize the expert team to better understand the history of the cultural heritage. So we have to focus on the long and glorious history of Chinese civilization and also the course of modern Chinese history, and also cultural relics that could be representing China's reform and opening up and the socialist modernization. All of these relevant cultural relics shall be preserved. By doing all of that, we could better protect and inherit the historic and the cultural heritage in China. At the same time, we have to improve our management. For example, we have to put clear accountability at the national, provincial, as well as the municipal level. So that said, the CPC Central Committee and the State Council attach great importance to the protection and inheritance work. This is one of our key tasks for the reform and opening up in China. And the opinion has already been approved in one of the economic conference. So actually, for this opinion, it is the first time that has been published from the Central Committee, and it is a very key document for us to strengthen the protection and the inheritance work. So this is representing the top-level design for us. This points out direction for us to further protect and inherit the historic and the cultural heritage. So by taking this opportunity, I would like to give you a general introduction. We have 5 parts and also with over 20 articles. So the first section is the general guideline. So except we have to put protection as the top priority. So protection is the key, and we should tell a good story about the China's development and also the development of the CPC. And also, we have to establish a scientific and effective protection and inheritance system. Also, we need to cover all aspects in order to protect and inherit the historic and the cultural heritage. And also, we need to work to resolve the problem in urban and rural development, for example, the destruction and demolition of historic and the cultural heritage sites. That said, we have to protect all of those relic sites, the cultural sites, in different stages and in different time periods. And in the second section, we emphasize that we have to establish a mechanism. So first, we have to focus on the objects of the protection. Also, we focus on the management. And the third part, we also pose very detailed instructions on how to protect this historic and the cultural heritage. So also we emphasize the importance to improve the cultural confidence of Chinese people. The fourth session, we emphasize our policies and measures. we have to make sure that all of these measures could be implemented. And for the fifth session, we are talking about the policy support for all the measures. So as I said, we have like 20 articles in 5 categories. So it actually poses very detailed arrangement for us. We clarify the duties and accountabilities at different levels of the government. And also, this opinion laid a solid foundation for us to further protect and inherit the historic and cultural heritage. So I think this is a landmark opinion document. So this is my general introduction. And right now, we would like to answer your questions. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Huang's introduction. Now the floor is open. Before you raise your question, please announce your media affiliation. With CMG CCTV, my question is to Ms. Huang. As we said, protection and inheritance of the historic and cultural heritage cover a lot of issues. For example, in different places, we do see during the course of the urban and rural development, there's a lot of destruction and demolition of those cultural and historic sites. So what measures shall we take to further protect those cultural sites? So thank you for your questions. So yes, indeed, we need to come up a number of measures to protect those valuable historic and cultural heritage sites. From the opinion, as I said, we have to work to resolve prominent problems in urban and rural development. For example, the frequent destruction and demolition of historic and cultural heritage sites. So we have to consider whether we have effective measures to manage this situation. So actually in section 4, we have 2 items are very important. So for example, in number 15, we said that we have to strengthen the supervision. First, we need to set up a routine inspection mechanism. So the inspection should be included into the grid management in the community. And also we have to strengthen the law enforcement so that we can spot the issues immediately and then to rectify those issues. We have to make sure that all of these cultural heritage and the historic heritage can be attended to. For example, in Tianjin, for certain streets, for the urban management department, they will do the routine inspection for those villages and the streets. And I think this is very important that we set up this routine supervision system. Second, we have to establish an evaluation system. By having a regular review, we could better protect and inherit the culture and the historic heritage. In 2017, we have done 2 times of evaluation. Based on our results, we think by having the evaluation, we can find out some of the loopholes, and we could better understand whether all these protection measures could be implemented. And later, we will publish more documents to set out the standards for the evaluation and the review. For example, if we found some of the historic and cultural heritage being demolished, maybe we will come up with a punishment system. Also, we need to strengthen the law enforcement so that we could curb and stop those illegal behavior. So we have to urge relevant departments to do the random inspection. And also at the same time, we will encourage our people, legal persons, and other organizations to report illegal activities. For some of the cases we receive, we found, for example, some people would like to report some of the illegal activities, the deliberate damage and the destruction of the culture and the historic heritage. This is one aspect. Second, I would like to talk about Article 16. We have to strengthen the review and set up an accountability mechanism. So in the past, we do have some weak links in this area. So we have to better manage our leaders. So first, we will do evaluation for the local officials and the leaders. So for example, we have an evaluation system for national civilized city. So right now, the protection and inheritance work will be included as part of the evaluation system for national civilized city. So for some of the cultural relics are being damaged and demolished, so we will report this situation. And if we found some of the inheritance work are not put in place, so we may remove the title for some historic sites. At the same time, we have to supervise the behavior of the local officials. So the protection and inheritance work will be part of the KPI for the local officials and the leaders. If some of these leaders violate the regulation, we will also help them accountable. Also, we will strengthen the litigation because back in 2018, protection and inheritance work is becoming a key issue for the lawsuits. So I think we have to strengthen our review and evaluation. By doing all of that, we could better protect and inherit the historic and the cultural heritage. Thank you. Next question, please.
要构建城乡历史文化保护传承体系，请问这是一个怎样的体系？谢谢。
I realized there were three aspects of the opinion. So in one aspect you're talking about we have to establish a system for the protection and inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage. Can you tell us more about this section? In the past, when we are trying to promote and inherit the cultural heritage, so we are not doing a good job. So in the opinion, we emphasize that we have to establish an effective and valid protection and inheritance system. On one hand, we have to focus on all aspects, and also we have to focus on the space management. We also need to properly handle the relations of the new towns and the old towns. Also, we have to pay attention to the natural landscape and the living heritage. We have to focus on some of the historic famous towns, village, industrial heritage, intangible cultural heritage. And all of these will be integrated, so we have to protect all of these sites altogether. And also this time, we emphasize the space and also the categories of the historic and the cultural heritage. In the past, when we are doing the protection and inheritance work, we are paying too much attention on the ancient times, and we are neglecting some of the cultural heritage of the modern China. In view of this issue, we emphasize that we have to pay attention to the protection work of the historic and the cultural heritage from ancient as well as the contemporary times. We have to showcase the history of the 5,000 years of Chinese civilization. We also need to preserve the course of the modern Chinese history and also tell a good story of China and a good story of CPC. And the second, we have to set up a valid management system. We need the country to work with the provincial and the municipal government so that we can form a synergy for the protection and the inheritance work. So we do not have a lot of coordination between the provincial and the municipal government. So that's why this time we have to set up a 3-tier management system. Second, we have to exercise all of these duties by different levels. At the state level and the provincial level, we have to design a top-level design. We need to set up a list of the objects of protection and also the protection catalog. So for the municipal level, they have to exercise their duties by jurisdiction. For the state and the province, they have to set up the catalog and also to come up with a lot of policies for the protection and the inheritance work. Thank you. Next question, please. With Hong Kong media. As the protection and the inheritance work cover a lot of areas, how to mobilize the motivation from different sectors? Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Su to answer your question. Thank you for your question. As you said, for the protection and the inheritance work of historic and the cultural heritage, it's a comprehensive work. Also, it draws public attention and also concerns multiple parties and sectors. So we need to give full play to different departments, and also we need to give full play to the markets and different entities. On Article 11, 13, and 14, they all pose detailed arrangements. As for your first question, in the opinion, I would like to emphasize 3 areas. First, we have to strengthen the coordination. We need to give full play to different departments. For example, for the protection and inheritance work, cover a wide range, so not a single department can do a good job. So for the housing and urban development, have to work together with the cultural preservation department. At the same time, we have to work with the MIIT, civil affairs, finance, natural resources, emergency management, and other departments to work together and discharge their own duties so that we can form a synergy for the protection and the inheritance. And second, we have to encourage the participation from different sectors. On one hand, we have to encourage different entities to play a key role in the planning, construction, and management for the protection and inheritance work. And second, we have to clarify the responsibilities and duties for all the stakeholders. And also, we need to take strict measures to exercise all the regulations. And also, we need to provide more incentive to different sectors. We need to come up with a policy to offer more subsidies and incentive to different sectors. Second, we need to promote the publicity and also to encourage the good practice so that we can embrace more sectors to participate in the work. As you said, for some of the historic sites, these are feature spaces for urban development. That's why we think the protection and inheritance work closely related to people's livelihood. In order to encourage local residents to participate in this work, we need to fully attend their needs. On one hand, we have to improve people's livelihood so that we can provide more services to local people. On one hand, for some of the historic sites, historic regions, we need to strengthen the weak links in those places. We need to provide more infrastructures to increase the sense of happiness of the local people. Also, we need to improve our capability of disaster relief so that people can gain a better sense of security. Third, we have to give full play of the values of the historic and the cultural heritage. So first of all, we have to pool all the available resources. We need to build a network so people could feel the charm of the historic and cultural heritage in their life. And also, the historic and the cultural heritage are important parts of their life. We need to better utilize of those cultural heritage. For example, we should make good use of the ancient houses and the ancient streets. And we would like to bring more opportunities to local people, and they could gain more benefits from the development of the historic and the cultural heritage. Thank you. Next question, please. So in the opinion, it is said that we have to put the protection and inheritance work as the top priority during the course of urban and rural development. Can you share with us more insights about this aspect? Yes, indeed. You point out a core issue for our document. Now we are entering into a new development stage. There's a lot of changes in the landscape for the course of the development of the urban and rural areas. So that's why we have changed our way for the protection and the inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage. That's why we need to integrate the protection and inheritance into the urban and rural development. And also, we have to revitalize these cultural and historic heritage. First of all, we have to protect all of these historic and the cultural heritage sites as required. First, we have to discover all of these historic and cultural heritage. Second, we have to include the available historic and the cultural heritage sites into our protection catalog. We also need to post very clear requirements for the protection. Third, we have to display and publicize all of these historic and cultural heritage sites. During General Secretary Xi's visit in Xiamen, he emphasized the importance of the protection of the cultural heritage in Gulangyu. So his work has actually gave us a good example in the protection and inheritance work. And the second, we should not demolish and destroy the historic and the cultural heritage sites. And also for some of the old houses and the ancient buildings, we shall not destroy those places. Also, we need to protect the terrains, the old trees, and old names of the ancient towns, because these places also carrying the memory of those places. We should not make random demolition and adjustment of those places. If you have to demolish all of those places, you need to solicit the opinion from the public and conduct a number of evaluations. Third, we have to revitalize these cultural and the historic heritage. So we have to be open-minded. so that this cultural heritage can better serve the public. Second, we have to make some renovation of the historic architecture, industrial relics, etc. With our renovation, we could make this historic and cultural heritage adapt to our daily life. Third, we also need to discover the relics representing the agricultural culture and also the irrigation projects. And also, we have to boost the urban-rural development. As you said, the urban-rural development is very important for our space development. So the protection and inheritance is closely related to the urban-rural development. First, we have to coordinate the space management. We have to properly handle the relations between the new towns and the ancient towns. We have to preserve the original look of the old town, and also to protect the historic memories. Also, we have to put equal emphasis on the demolition as well as the renovation. We should do only minor renovation to those ancient places. And also, we need to preserve all of those historic and cultural heritage to boost the rural revitalization. Fifth, we have to carry forward the spirit of the historic culture. We want to bring this historic and the cultural heritage into our people's daily life, making sure that in different places we could see the history, we could feel the Chinese culture in their daily life. And by doing all of that, people's culture confidence will be enhanced. Thank you. Next question, please. With cover news, for the opinions, the aim is to strengthen the protection and the inheritance of historic and the cultural heritage in the course of urban-rural development. So right now, we're upgrading our urban developments. So what measures shall be taken for the protection and inheritance work? Thank you. Since the 5th plenary session of the 19th CPC National Congress and the 14th Five-Year Plan also made very clear arrangements for the upgrade of the urban development. So we have published a notification to prohibit large-scale demolition work. So for the protection and inheritance work is one of the key aspects for us to upgrade the urban development. For the opinion, we have clarified more details. So during the urban development, we should prohibit large-scale demolition, and we shall not tear down the ancient buildings and construct the pseudo-classic architectures, and we should not mix the fake ones with the genuine buildings. We have to make sure that for these ancient places, they can represent the memory of the local people. Recently, we found during the upgrade for some of the cities, they actually cut down some of the old trees, and this will also cause some dissatisfaction for local people. So we should protect the ancient trees, and this is actually one of the traditions for China. This could be dated back to the West Zhou dynasty. So we are saying when we are doing the renovation and upgrade the urban development, we have to pay tribute to our history. Based on the history, for some old trees, they have been existing for thousands of years, and this tree will actually remind us of the history. For thousands of years, this is a Chinese tradition. We always respect and also attach deeply to all of those ancient sites or ancient objects. So we have to respect this national tradition. And this time, we also emphasize that we need to hold up to our bottom line. By doing that, we could rectify some of the inappropriate behavior. According to the opinion, preservation is our top priority. On top of that, we will do some minor renovation. Because in the past, we focused too much on the demolition. But right now, we have made a lot of change, and we are thinking the preservation is our top priority. So first of all, we have to collect all the resources and making sure that we can protect those most valuable historic and cultural heritage. And the third, we have to change our methods to the protection and inheritance. We have to change our mindset. By saying that, I mean we need to do minor renovation for the historic and the cultural heritage. For Yangzhou, Shaoxing, they have done a good job. They always take a long-term vision for the protection and the inheritance of the cultural heritage. And on top of that, they will do an upgrade of the urban development. Going next, we will continue to exercise all the articles from the opinion. We will find out more replicable and also scalable experiences. And also, we would like to guide the other cities to do a good job in the protection and the inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage in rural urban development. Next question, please. With China News Service, in the opinion, I realize there's a lot of missions and assignments. So my question is, during the implementation of all of these measures, are there any policy guarantee or policy support? Thank you. I would like to take your question. In order to make sure all the measures can be implemented, we do have some supervision work and also some evaluation work going on. In the last section, this document also emphasized some of the guarantee measures. So we have 4 aspects to talk about the guarantee. So first, we have to strengthen the overall leadership of CPC. So for the protection and the inheritance work, this is actually an important decision made by the CPC Central Committee and the State Council. So first, we have to strengthen the leadership of the CPC. So in one of the conference from the CPC Central Committee, it emphasized that for party committees and government at all levels, they have to play a key role in the protection and the inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage. So we have to strengthen the leadership for this party committee and the government. So the party leadership should be throughout the whole process for the protection and the inheritance. By doing that, it could ensure that all the decisions and deployment for the CPC Central Committee and State Council can be implemented. Second, we have to improve regulation and laws because we always exercise according to rules. So for the protection and inheritance also need to have a legal foundation. So from the opinion, it also lay out a lot of requirements and missions. So right now we have the regulation on protection of the historic and cultural heritage, and also we have the regulation on protection of historic sites. But right now, as we have more categories and more responsibilities, now we have to revise the existing regulation and laws to better exercise the decisions from the CPC Central Committee and the State Council. When necessary, we have to revise the regulation on protection of historic sites. after we publish the opinion, we will revise certain rules and the regulations by different departments. At the same time, we also need to guide the localities to fulfill their duties according to the regulation and the rules. So this is very important for us to do a good job in the protection and inheritance. Third, it's about funding, investment. For many years, we always being reported that we do not have sufficient funds because for the protection work and the inheritance, we do not receive sufficient subsidies and funding support. As we do not have sufficient investments, for certain places they are not able to do their job, especially for underdeveloped cities and regions. They do have this urgent need. We have done a lot of work for 137 historic cities and historic sites. They don't have any capital support. So first of all, we have to improve our financial support to the protection and inheritance work. And also we need to set up a budget in different localities for the protection and inheritance work. And also we need to give stronger support to the protection and inheritance in revolutionary base and the border areas and the poverty-stricken areas. So all in all, we have to strengthen our support financially and to expand more channels to attract investments. And next, we have to strengthen the training. So first of all, we need to improve the awareness for people who are working in the area of the protection and inheritance. Also, we have to improve the awareness for the local officials and the local leaders. So first, we have to provide more training to the leaders. We require the party schools, official schools, to increase the frequency to provide the trainings to the leaders so that their awareness can be improved for the protection and the inheritance work. And recently, we have done a number of trainings to the local officials, especially in the area of the protection and the inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage. Also, we have made a lot of progress in this regard, and we will continue to step up our efforts for the training this year. And the second, we will provide more training to higher education, vocational schools, etc. And also we would like to provide more trainings to inheritors and the craftsmen, especially for those who are staying in the village. If they do not have this craftsmanship, they are not able to protect and inherit the historic and the cultural heritage. So still, I would say this is a long-lasting work. So I just mentioned in 4 areas we could better guarantee our work in the protection and the inheritance. Thank you. Next question, please. With China Daily, we realize, according to the opinions, we need to compile a document, a framework for the protection and inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage in urban-rural development. Can you tell us more about this? So when compiling a state level and the provincial level framework is of great significance for the protection and inheritance work. First, by having this framework, and the system, we could better protect the historic and the cultural heritage. Back in 1982, China do have a catalog to protect and preserve the historic and the cultural heritage. However, we don't have any preservation guidelines at the national level. So according to the opinion, it is the first time we emphasize the importance to fully establish a protection and inheritance system for historic and the cultural heritage. And the second, we have to clarify the responsibility and the duties for the country and also for the provincial as well as the municipal governments. So we have to clarify the scope for the protection and also the management. So for example, for the provincial level, they have to come up with a top-level design, and also for the municipal level, they need to come up with details on the protection and the inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage. So for our department, we will take the lead to publish a protection and inheritance system for the historic and the cultural heritage. And later on, we will publish a notification to stipulate more details. One last question. With Start News, we are aware that according to the opinion for the work of the protection and the inheritance, any changes for our mindset and the philosophy for the protection and the inheritance work? Thank you for your question. I would like to take your question. And just now, we have gave you some general introduction about the core areas of this opinion. Actually, we just mentioned a lot of key points. So when you, in response to your questions, so maybe I would like to give you some highlights on these opinions, especially the different mindsets. So we have to exercise the problem-oriented and value-oriented method. So that said, for the measures and the philosophies, we do make a lot of changes in the opinions. I would like to give you a quick summary. First, we have to emphasize the importance of the supervision and the penalty. In the past, we always talk big and do less because we see frequent destruction and demolition. So this time, in the opinion, we clarified the issues in relating to the assessment and also the penalty as well as the accountability review. We clarify the duties for local officials and the leaders. We will run a lot of reviews and evaluation. And also we have a lot of measures to handle some of the illegal practice or inappropriate practice. When necessary, we also help the leaders and officials accountable for not discharging their work in the protection and the inheritance. So this is one aspect, and also this is the key aspect for us in the opinion. Second, as Mr. Yang just mentioned, in the past, for each department, they may carry some of the duties. It is quite fragmented for our protection and inheritance work, but this time, it is more systemic. We are trying to form synergy for the protection and the inheritance work. So, meaning that we will be taking more coordinative efforts for the protection and inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage in the rural urban areas. So, for example, in the space, in the categories, and the different time spans, we cover almost everything about the historic and the cultural heritage for the protection. So by doing all of that, we could better tell the story of China and better tell the story of the CPC. And third, we mention the objects for the protection. And also we emphasize the importance of the revitalization of the culture and the historic heritage. So we have to inherit the spirit and inherit all of this intangible heritage. So we need to better integrate the protection and inheritance work into the next phase, rural and urban development. The opinion have set out very detailed information about this. Fourth, we have to integrate the protection and inheritance of the historic and the cultural heritage into the social and cultural development. So it is not just focusing on our life, and also we need to focus on the spiritual level. So by having the protection and inheritance, we do want to improve the cultural confidence for Chinese people. We always talk about we want to have our Chinese civilization and culture reflected in every walks of our life. So this is a very major changes for our opinion. So these are the key highlights for the opinion. Thank you.